Oh shit, did we start? This is going to be a right shit show.
Crouch. Bind. Set.
My name's Thomas.
His name's Thomas.
That's Adam.
Thanks.
Welcome to the PODcastaways. This is our first episode. Obviously, production quality will hopefully get better over time, but
What are you talking about?
we've got to get a table eventually and some Castaways merch, but we're getting there. But yeah, welcome. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the club itself, so you get to know the Castaways. We just played our first game of the league season on Saturday, which is now 2 days ago. Talk a little bit about that and some of the games that happened this past weekend as we're leading into the World Cup. So stay tuned.
So, Thomas's great idea was to have a podcast.
It's true.
I did one thing and one thing only, which was thinking of the name of the podcast.
And the branding. You got the logo.
And I did the logo.
Looks really good.
But yeah, so I think what we'll try and do is recap games, give a new look to the next game. Hopefully we'll get some of the other guys out to give us some expertise in terms of what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong.
Coaches, captains, things like that.
We got Ollie to give us some game footage with a rugby. So we should have a new camera coming, which would be cool, so then we can watch it back. And then I guess we just talk about rugby in general.
As well, yep. Luckily, starting in a World Cup year, so we'll have plenty of rugby, pretty much 6 or 7 games every weekend, starting on the 9th. So a lot to talk about and a lot to do.
Cool.
But I'll talk a little bit about the club as well, who we are, and a little bit about us. I've only played for the club now for 2 years. I started in 2021, but the club's been around since 2013. It was founded then on the general idea of rugby for everybody. They first entered into a D4 team that ended up winning the Midwest championships and being promoted to D3 in their very first season, which is a huge accomplishment and something that we're still very proud of. Since then, we've been to the playoffs multiple times in the D3 league. Most recently last year, we went to the playoffs and made it pretty far in, actually. We do also have a D4 side that just started as well in the last 2 years. But for a little bit of context, here in the United States, we have technically 4 levels of rugby. You have D1, D2, D3, and D4. D1 being folks who are aspiring to go pro, folks who maybe used to play pro or just want to play at a more serious level. D3 is a mix of that and gets more of the social side as well. So yeah, and D4 tends to be newer teams that are starting to move up to the ranks. So that's a little bit about us.
I will say that the D3 level of the game was a lot higher than I thought it was going to be in terms of what I'm used to in England, and maybe just feeling my age. But so I think it's a good quality of rugby. Like, there's definitely some people out there who know what they're doing and who play really well. So I know that D1 team's pretty high up there, so that's cool.
Yeah. D1 has a lot of old MLR and future MLR stars in there, so real neat stuff there. But we're based out of Columbus, Ohio. We practice 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. at Rhodes Park, with games on Saturdays. Typically, we travel around the state of Ohio, as well as up to Michigan, Indiana, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and Tennessee, with some of our furthest travels having been on tours most recently to Boston and to Washington, D.C. in the past couple of years. So some neat stuff there. Sure. So we have elected our captains a couple weeks ago now. We have our forwards captain, Rory Malloy, and our backs captain, Ollie O'Connell. And so they help with selections as well as help leading the team on the field. I guess you can talk to a little bit about Ollie since you're a back, and I can talk a little bit about Rory since he's a forward. I'll let you start.
Ollie's from New Zealand originally, so he claims he is a first 5, which means nothing to me, which he says he's a fly half. So yeah, it was his first game at fly half on Saturday against Detroit, and I think he did pretty well. He's got some good skills, definitely played with a little bit more of a centers mentality at some point, and sometimes a back row mentality, but you can definitely tell he's from the Southern Hemisphere.
Jackal threat.
Putting some hits in and stuff, it was good.
Here he is, passing to me, and then he rucks this big guy off the ball. Big hit.
Yeah, I think he's been out of rugby for about 15 years or something, and hasn't really played since he moved over here. And so I think getting back into it is good, but he's definitely got some skills. He's a great guy. Can't understand a word he says, though.
It all sounds like sheep stuff. I don't know. But Rory's also a great guy. He's played rugby now for almost 26, 27 years, I think, give or take. Pretty much by the time he was in high school, he's played ever since then. He's played for us in the back row as well as a lock, which I've seen him play primarily as a lock, but I know his first choice is definitely to be a back rower. He's someone who likes to lead by example. He's not much of a talker. He'd rather be on the field making the tackle, making the hits, carrying the ball over the game line, things like that. So a lot to learn from and a lot of experience. So he's real great about picking out the holes and loves his dummies. So fun guy to lead out on, follow out on the field, I should say. But this weekend we had our first game of the season. It was a home opener against Detroit. Detroit has been our kryptonite team the last year. We lost only 2 games last season, both of which were to Detroit. First was our first game of the season against them last year, and then we got to the playoffs, beat up a team up in Michigan, and then played them the following week, and unfortunately lost again. And so we had a lot going into this game here, this 2023 fall, and so there's a lot of hype built up around it, and it definitely lived up to the hype.
There was a lot of, Detroit are coming, Detroit are big, the hard runners, they definitely hit hard. I definitely feel bruised and like ego as well as body. But they, I think we held our own. I think we did pretty well. We did lose, which was disappointing. But putting in, scoring 2 tries, both of them converted. Well done.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah!
But holding within 20 points,
yeah, exactly.
I think there was probably one that shouldn't have been a try, which we can talk about another time. But you hold your own, score, don't get a whitewash on the first game, and against the current champions, I think is a hell of a performance. There's definitely stuff to work on.
So right now with us at Gresso's, we have Ollie, our backs captain for the season. First season with the Castaways, first season elected captain. Ollie has volunteered his time to help write up some stat sheets for the team, working alongside Coach Foster. Ollie, take it away.
Yeah, I think we definitely weren't the worst team on Saturday. I think we're actually pretty good. There was just a couple of areas in the stats that you can see that we really faltered. I think the big one was territory. We played too much game in our own 22. 28% of the game was in our 22, when only 13% of the game was in their 22. So that really hurt us in the end, especially when we came to our exits. The other area where we really faltered was our turnovers. 7 jackals is not a good. So securing those rucks is going to be big for us against Fort Wayne. Outside of that, I thought we were pretty good. Less turnovers, good game line percentage, good scrum win percentage, good line out wins. Obviously lots of little places to improve, but in general, I thought we were pretty even with Detroit, just little things to work on and then kick Fort Wayne's ass.
Hell yeah.
Cool, thanks, Ollie. I didn't understand a fucking word he said.
Awesome footage, and then psyching us up for the next team. But I don't think we should hang our heads at all. I think we played really well.
I agree.
I think there were some standout performances as well from some players. Simon and Blaze in the back row with Rory were insane. Ollie played really well at fly half. When Jordan came on in the second half and shifted to fly half, he made some great decisions.
Naturally avoiding yourself being man of the match. But we can skip over that a little bit.
I don't want to. Let's not relive that. But when Jordan came on, he made some great decisions. He played really well. And the thing that I think he was really well is he listened to everyone, and it was team first, which we talk about a lot, but it really was team first. And he, listened, did what he said to do. And Ollie said this at the end of the game, when we stuck to the Castaways game plan, we stuck to what we said we did. We executed what we wanted to do. We were with them.
I agree.
It's the little stuff, the losing your head, a decision you don't necessarily agree with from the referee, and you lose your head a little bit, and you let it get to us. That just comes with experience. A little bit of fitness, I gotta say. It was a hot day.
It was brutal, absolutely.
But a little bit more fitness, a little bit more regimen in terms of everyone knows the game plan. Doesn't matter if you're 6, 7, 15, doing the same thing. I think we'd have been great.
Yeah, I agree. I was majority really impressed with our defense, because we were on defense for probably something like 80% of the game. And, in that first half, we held really, really well on the line. There was a couple sets there where we stopped them for 9, 10, 12 phases, it felt like at times. And, going into the second half, the game stopped at halftime 15-14. We were only down by a point at halftime, I believe. And we held that scoreline for quite a while into that second half. It just really came with that heat, that exhaustion level getting to us. And And that really made things hard, and folks coming into positions they normally don't go into. For example, Marcus, who was on the bench as a winger, ended up on as a flank and things like that, where they know the game plan and can slot in seamlessly, which is nice. But it throws you off a little bit when you come on and play different positions. So
yeah, and I think that that comes with fitness as well. I think people get injuries less. First game, very hot game, and people having to step up, play out of position. Like I was lucky enough to stay on and play center the whole time, but like Dougie stepped in, played in the center. Jordan played in the center with me when Foster went off, and then shifted to his comfortable position at fly half. Ollie dropped back to 15. The forwards got moved around a lot, like you moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that, like I said, comes with a little bit more experience and being used to. There's 15 guys in the field, and it doesn't really matter what numbers on your back. You know where you need to stand at the next play. Yeah. But I think we played really well.
I was also very, very thrilled. We had a lot of new guys making their debut for the team on Saturday as well. So yourself, Sam, Ollie, Simon, and Blaze all made their first league start, which was really, really great. And everyone performed very well, and I thought that was great. There's also a lot of guys who were out on long-term injuries, like Brendan, who had been out for a while from a broken leg and things like that, who came back, played his first game back, and scored a try. So it was really, really some great stuff there, and it was very, very heartwarming, I think, and it was good to see on the field. So
yeah, it was also fun. Like it was great to be back on the rugby field. Like I know we played some 7s and some 10s and a lot of touch over the summer, but it was nice to just be in a proper 15s game and back into comfortable places.
I agree.
None of us are built for 7s, and so it's been a tough summer. But like 15s is where it's at, and I can't. I don't know the words, but I loved it, and I just want to play again. Like I'm a bit disappointed we got a bye week next week, and I definitely want to get back on it, but my body will be better for a week off, I think.
Yeah, the way that I look at it is we got 2 weeks until Fort Wayne. That's 8 hours of training time to dial in and get our mistakes all sorted out and get ready to go for that big game. So we're excited for that. That's also true.
It's British weather. A little bit of rain.
No rain for me.
Yeah, grumpy rain.
Makes the lineouts hard to throw, and the kicks are even worse. So.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the World Cup?
The World Cup. Very differing opinions on this, but
well, one of us is right. And
me.
The other one is you.
Well, I'm on the right, and I'm right, so it's perfect.
You'll be on the left of the screen.
We'll flip it. We're going to flip it. But the World Cup is starting up here in 2 weeks. Here in the States, most of the games are going to be broadcast between probably 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. at night, because it is in France this year.
No, so it's the other way. Some of them, it's the other way around. The later games are at 3 p.m. It's
that's right. That's right.
9 a.m. Eastern time, midday, and 3 p.m. So they're the 3 time slots.
My hot take that he disagrees with is I do believe that France are going to win the World Cup. Cool. I think they've showed enough of that grit. They have the home advantage, and I don't think they look like they can be beat with the pool that they're in. I think the home opener, it's going to be a close one, but I do think France are going to win it.
I disagreed with you for so long until Friday night when South Africa whitewashed New Zealand.
Yeah.
And have you seen the world rankings today?
I did. I saw that. Yeah, I saw England is pretty down fire.
8th, which is terrible. Fiji and Argentina both going above New Zealand. England. Scotland are 5th. New Zealand are now 4th.
Yep.
With France and South Africa above them. Ireland still 1st. But then, so that was shocking. And I think that I have to answer. I also watched, I think I sent it to you this morning. Did you watch actually Portugal, some of the tries they scored last week?
They have some running rugby. They're
a dark horse because they don't play the same rugby as everyone else.
Yeah.
And so that's where Japan were great in 2011.
Their captain, Appleton, who's their inside center, he just wants to play the ball. He calls the ball for the 10 to the 12 all the time and just wants it wide. That's more important. They're more of a backs team. They know where their strength is, and they really make it work.
And that's exactly like what Japan did a couple of World Cups ago. Japan, not physically big, but all they did was focus on, they hardly ever knocked it on. They hardly ever missed a tackle, even if it's 2 of them's tackles.
And they upset South Africa.
And they beat South Africa. And I remember, I was in New Zealand at that time. I remember watching it and thinking I was hoping they were going the whole way. I think they were never going to do it. But yeah, huge upset. Great team. I looked at, just to annoy you, I looked at the last year's worth of games for the top 4 teams.
Sure.
Well, no, not top 4 because one of them's England and the other 8. But if you look through England's wins, for example, this is why I don't think England will play very well. Oh my god, I can't remember on my phone. But so a year ago, within a year, November, England lost to Argentina by a point.
Right.
Then they whitewashed Japan. Fair enough. Okay, but then they have lost 5 of their last 6, and before that, they also lost to South Africa, New Zealand. It was a tie, 25-all against New Zealand.
Right.
But both of those were in when they were ranked way higher, so they should have won those games. Maybe not the New Zealand one, but they definitely should have beat the South Africa one. They were ranked a lot higher. France struggled in the first couple of games of the Six Nations this year, and then narrowly beat Scotland. Struggled against Italy, only won by 5 points. Only put 18 extra points on Japan in the before. Lost to Ireland, obviously. Destroyed England, which was funny. But then they let Wales score 4 tries against them. So
that's also true.
I don't know. I don't think France has the depth for a World Cup that you think they have.
I do think they have the best depth out of any side other than Ireland.
See, I don't think Ireland's got great depth. I think Ireland has rested 2 of their best players for all of these prelim games, and they're not going to be game ready for those first 2 games.
I also think that's an advantage that France has. The Pro 14 also started back up, or the Pro 14 started back up again, and it's already going. So they have battle-ready players. They're going to be, they're already in the country too. So if they need them, they're there. Yeah. I think that's a big advantage that they have over a lot of these other nations.
Ireland looked like they struggled against Samoa.
Yeah, they did. It was a very
tough game.
A lot of rib-crunching tackles in there, and it didn't seem like anyone could really get started going. But no, I do think that France, in my eyes anyways, are the favorites to get there. I do acknowledge that Ntamak is a big loss, but I think Jalabert has proved himself time and time again, and he's got that X factor that not a lot of other players have. I think any other nation in the world, he'd be starting or in the conversation for starting, almost any other country. So,
yeah, I mean, obviously it's in France, home advantage. I think it's going to go a long way. I think the days of Southern Hemisphere teams struggling in the Northern Hemisphere are gone. I think Argentina are always a dark horse in the.
I agree. I think they'll beat England in game 1 for that Pool D.
So do I.
Yeah.
And you saw, so your second favorite person in the world, Owen Farrell, is out for the first 2 games.
First 2 games, yeah.
Which is arguably England's 2 most difficult games.
Yeah, it's versus Argentina, and then maybe it's Japan the second game. I don't recall for him. I think that maybe he doesn't provide as much as other 10s do that England has to offer, but what he does offer is leadership. And that's something that you can't put down because, I mean, if you watch the game this weekend, they looked like they didn't have a leader on the field. They didn't know what they were doing or where to go. A lot of it wasn't structured. The tries they had were pure luck, like Marcus Smith just being in the right place at the right time to catch that ball and get through the hole. That was pure luck. I don't think that was something organized by anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think England will struggle. I don't think England will get out of the group stage. I think Ireland will that group with Scotland and South Africa. South Africa look incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But Scotland can also do an upset at any point. Yeah, they do. And so I think that group is going to be interesting. I think France and New Zealand should be the 2 that go through. England's group should be England and Argentina, but who knows?
So I actually wrote down the first couple of games, not all of them, but the key ones, but the ones that are probably going to be the largest for deciding the games are the pools. So who do you think France is going to lose to New Zealand?
I don't know. On France's performance,
I mean, they destroyed Australia this week without even looking like they had to try.
I know, but Australia sometimes are just.
They turned up well against New Zealand in the last game of that championship, and it's. I mean.
No, they turned up in the first 60 minutes, and then as soon as New Zealand turned it on in that last 20.
No, I don't think New Zealand has great depth either. I think Ethan de Groot is by far their best tight head, and after that they don't have. Loose head. I can't recall which scrum he's on. Is definitely their best front rower. I think that they put Dane Coles in this past week, which didn't help their stats. He's past it for sure. Even though I love the guy, he's past it. Tyrell Lomax went out injured. He should be back, though, for the opening game. Scott Barrett was stupid, but he's got his red card, but he's not going to be banned, so he's going to be back. Retallick should be back from injury and time to play. Obviously, you have Whitelock, who is world-class any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I think... Did Richie Mwanga play?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did, I think.
I don't know. I think that game will be one of the closest games to call. I would say that France have obviously got home advantage and are in form. New Zealand are coming off a loss, but I don't think you can ever count against the All Blacks. Like, never once would I ever put money on them losing a game.
I can see where you're coming from. I think the biggest thing that they're missing right now is any type of go forward. I think without Shannon Frizzell there as their sixth man, he just, no matter where he is on the field, he seems to break the gain line, get over it. He just never misses a tackle. The dude's a monster, and he's going to be out for the first couple of games. He's a huge loss. Luke Jacobson just didn't seem to provide anything that Shannon Frizzell couldn't.
Well, we'll see. I think that game's going to be too difficult. I would like to see New Zealand win.
I think France are going to win it.
Okay.
Next one, we already kind of talked about a little bit, was England v Argentina.
Argentina are going to absolutely destroy England.
I agree.
England will let tempers get up to them as well, and England will get another couple of yellows, and other players will get miss games.
I think that's going to be a game where the ball is going to be out of play more than it's in play, given that Argentina also have issues with carding. Obviously, you have Thomas Levenin, who's the most red-carded player in history.
Is he?
He has 3 or 4 red cards, something like that. So they have a couple guys that Marcos Kramer, who was out for a couple of these summer series games because he was carded in the Pro 14, things like that. So
I think Argentina have got 2 of the best wingers in world rugby for just out and out speed.
It's from the Sevens game they came from too.
And I think
their back row is amazing.
And who's the hooker? Plays for Leicester.
Montoya,
yeah, quality, and he's a captain, but his head can get to him. He can, throw a wild punch, especially when he's wearing a blue and white shirt. He gets,
passions
a little bit, yeah. But I do think Argentina have got the edge on that one. 100%.
I do agree. I agree with that as well. I think just the size difference. I think England also just some of their best players have been just holding it together. Like Ollie Lawrence had to get subbed out. I don't know if it was due to injury or not, but he was all wrapped up with stuff. Tuolagi's always a hard one to.
But Manu Tuolagi is only ever looking for that massive tackle.
I agree.
The same when I used to have a season ticket at Leicester Tigers, and we used to go watch him, and it was incredible to be there and watch him make those big hits.
Yeah.
And that's all he does. He just tries to line up that big hit.
Right.
And you saw Owen Farrell, Billy Vunipola, both of them getting yellow cards because the game has changed from 6-7 years ago when that was what everyone wanted to see. Now people want, the players to have safety around the ruck and the breakdown and the tackle and stuff. So I think he's a liability.
I can see that. The next game is South Africa versus Scotland is the opener for that.
Until 2 weeks ago, I'd have said that would have been a close game. I think Scotland will absolutely get destroyed.
So
I think they're missing. I think Finn Russell is class, but he's not in the same world as South Africa, and I think they've got his number. I think South Africa's second row and back row are by far better than Scotland. I think Scotland's front row is good, but who's the
Xander Fagerson, who gets red carded every other game or yellow carded every other game.
He did the same thing. He did the same thing in the Six Nations when he threw in came into the ruck and just targeted someone's head, and got banned for 3 games, I think. And then he
got
did the
banned
same
again.
thing. The same thing, same as Owen Farrell. You can't do that and then expect to just say, "Oh, sorry, I'll change the way I do it," because he hasn't changed his technique. And I think it's ridiculous. Like, being on the receiving end of those hits, you're just like, well, that's not rugby.
I do acknowledge your point. I think the one thing that Scotland maybe has over South Africa, now I won't say that they're overall better, because I don't really watch South African, I don't really watch the URC all that much, to be quite honest, but I do think that Scotland's backs are, I know you acknowledge Finn Russell, but I think Darcy Graham is one of the best players in the world right now. I think Huey Platu, between Hugh Jones and Tui Platu, is by far and away one of the best, if not the best.
I think
probably
maybe the on-form winger in world rugby at the moment, other than who's the guy who didn't score for New Zealand.
Will Jordan. 24 tries from 26 games.
He's quality. But Van der Merwe is probably the on-form winger over the past year. I think
Darcy Graham's better than him right now.
Maybe.
He likes to run it sideways a lot. But I think the back line is going to be where they've just got to get the backs ball going and got to hold it together at the set piece and just keep getting Finn Russell the ball in his hands.
I think Faf de Klerk is going to ruin the ball. He's going to be he's always offside, but he's all good nines are.
Yeah.
But he will ruin delivery, and so Scotland won't have clean ball. I think South Africa by a mile.
It's going to be, it'll be interesting to see who gets.
And I will send this podcast link to my brother-in-law, Matt, and he is Scottish, and I am sorry, but also that's really funny.
Now, the final one that I want to talk about for the World Cup is Wales versus Fiji.
Oh, Fiji are incredible. Like, very different style of rugby than, always ball. They play sevens, but ball in one hand. But I just think Wales have been terrible. And your friend Dan Biggar
hate that guy.
has not been good and has now just announced his retirement. And so I think he's past it. He's done. Like, I would have loved to see Stuart Hogg play in this World Cup, but he even posted, like, he hasn't got the fitness in it.
He said he doesn't want to keep anymore.
But Dan Biggar's in the same thing. Dan Biggar, like, I don't think he's in form. He loses his head and he has arguments with his own team players.
He yelled at Rio Dyer and almost threw a punch on him, I thought at one point.
He's also a liability, but against his own team.
Yeah.
I don't see Wales getting out of their group.
I mean, you look at that group, it's Wales, Australia, Fiji, Georgia, and Portugal.
Portugal have got some amazing, like we talked about a minute ago. Portugal will have some great back play. Fiji can beat anyone on the day. Australia, I think they can bring it, and they do, like, the 3 Southern Hemisphere teams, and even Argentina now, they turn up in World Cups.
I agree.
You know that those 4 teams are going to be in the quarterfinals, and it'll be weird if they're not. I don't see Wales getting out of the group. I think it'll be Australia and Fiji.
I agree.
But I think that would be good.
I mean, Fiji has one of the best sevens in the world in Bhatia, who just seems to turn over the ball every single time that he's involved in a ruck. I mean, he used to be a center, so he's fast too. He's a monster. I think their hooker doesn't seem to miss a throw, and he's, an incredible runner. They're all running threats. It's just hard to mark any one pod and assume you've got everyone down. So.
I think the one thing that Fiji, Tonga, Samoa, all the Pacific Islander teams is that they play their style of rugby, and you used to be able to counteract that with front row and forward power, but they have big guys now. Samoa did not look great in the line-out against Ireland the other day. And some of their decision making, like they had a penalty to win the game, and like all they had to do was kick to the corner, like take it down, and they missed touch, and so Ireland were lucky to get away with that. But I do think the Southern Hemisphere teams now have got a little bit more. Like their players play in South Africa, they play in New Zealand, but they also play in Europe and stuff. And they've got, they've got depth. Cool. Should we wrap this up?